Today, I'm taking a Myers-Briggs personality test disguised as a video game. That is to say, I'm playing Refined Self, a game whose goal is to help you figure out what you're really like, or at least what you're like when you play video games. A unique and interesting experience that'll lead you to reflect on your journey and view your actions differently. So join me as I tell you, my journey that will in no way be relevant to yours, effectively making this video pointless from the get-go. Wow, what a sales pitch, why don't you tell them to watch paint dry instead? Better yet, try to remind them of something that's actually important, like that huge pile of dirty dishes sitting in their sink. So as always, I'll begin with the story, and just so you know, I spoil these things rotten, so if you don't want that, then here's a timestamp you can jump to avoid that, or you can always just stop watching. All good? Then let's get started. The game begins with someone walking in this establishment run by a robot with a TV for a head. Since the person who walked in doesn't know a single thing about themselves, Mr. TV Head offers to help by letting you play a 100-year-old game made by a doctor who was running experiments to embed personalities into robots. So you boot up the game and begin the personality test. Within the game, you control this girl named Utsuwa, and I'm honestly not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but the game does give you the option to rename her, so realistically I could just call her whatever I want and it would technically be fine. I'm still just gonna call her Utsuwa though. Anyway, the doctor who created her, called Kusunoki, is dead, but she's still left with the promise they made some time ago to be happy together. Well, I'll just remind everyone that one of the parties involved in that promise is dead now, so... From this point on, pretty much everything else is in your hands. You decide where to go, what to do, who to talk to, all of that. Depending on what actions you take, you'll be able to uncover more info and background lore about things like Utsuwa and the Doctor's relationship, past events, or the many other denizens of the world. At this point, however, not everything will be about the main story, and depending on what you do, you might not learn much about it at all. And even if you do find bits of information that actually relate to the main story, it's usually presented with very little to no context, meaning you're probably just going to end up with more questions than answers. So the main story will mostly be on hold during the personality test, and it'll only really resume once you finally finish it. Once that happens, you'll have to make a choice about what you want to do regarding the promise you made with the doctor. I chose the option, I want to fulfill my promise to the doctor, and for some reason this resulted in Utsuwa deciding to punch some sheeps out of existence. Don't know how that happened, but it resulted in a confrontation between Utsuwa and this Inori character, so I guess I'm fighting her now. I tried to get Utsuwa to reconsider her decision, but I just ended up getting her killed in the process, so whoops. Afterwards, you're given an ending based on your personality, which is then exported, and you're taken back to Mr. TV Head, who encourages you to play again if you want to learn more about yourself. So play the game again, and at the end you'll find yourself destroying sheep once again. I honestly don't know why this happened this time either. Once you're back in the establishment, Mr. TV Head tells you can find out about your most distant personality by taking the test a third time. Doing so gives you a short cutscene as well as this pre-test dialogue lamenting what seems to be Utsuwa's decisions and asking you to fix them by making her human-like. After completing the test, and yes, beating up sheep yet again, you're rewarded with another cutscene as well as the end to this story. After the game quickly spoils all the endings for you, the game reveals that Utsuwa destroying the sheep and letting herself die afterwards was actually an inevitability, and said sheep are actually embedded with the Doctor's DNA. Apparently, this was to allow the Doctor to be revived 100 years from now so they could keep their promise. While the Doctor is wondering why she always destroys the sheep, Utsuwa wakes up and tells her that she did it to fulfill that promise, and that regardless of her personality or how she arrives at that personality, her feelings won't change and she'll always destroy them. Kusunoki tries in vain to get a different outcome by rerunning the test multiple times until Utsuwa finally urges her to give up. Turns out, humanity is fighting against nanomachines, which is basically an incurable disease that will destroy humanity very soon, and it'll only be safe once they break down 100 years from now, hence the whole sheep embedded with DNA thing. Because Kusunoki didn't want anyone else to have Utsuwa, she wanted everyone to die alongside her and be reborn in a century to be with Utsuwa again. But Utsuwa, understandably, doesn't want to be left all alone for 100 years, just to be with another version of the Doctor rather than the one she knows. She also states that, in her eyes, a personality is just the result of the path you've traveled, and because of how long the path that she's traveled with the Doctor has been, it can't simply be erased, removed, or undermined even by a change in personality. So, to erase that path, Kusunoki decides to erase Utsuwa's memories of her, leading you to the final choice. Do you erase them, or not? And so, for my final decision, I refused. And this causes Kusunoki to have a change of heart and decide that, even if it's just for a little longer, she wants to create happy memories with her. To talk to her, play with her, and whoa, simmer down there, this isn't appropriate for YouTube, it's way too lewd, I can't be talking about that. And so, it looks like they were able to keep their promise to one another after all. Whew, that was a lot to talk about for such a short game. The story about robots becoming sentient and more than just robots isn't exactly new, but I quite enjoyed it nonetheless. The relationship between Utsuwa and Kusunoki is very endearing, and the story is both beautiful and melancholic at the same time. Sure, it's kind of grim at times, but it's also a beautiful and uplifting reminder of how important life is, as well as what really matters in that life. Maybe I'm just overly sentimental, but personally I always enjoyed these kinds of stories. Or maybe it's just because my life is a complete wreck, and these beautiful tales just always give me that sudden burst of motivation to fix your life at 3 AM kind of energy. When it comes to the visuals, I think they look pretty good. I've always been a fan of games with good pixel art. I think it just gives them an undeniable charm. It's not super flashy or filled with tiny details or anything, but it still looks really good and it conveys everything it needs to incredibly well. The character portraits are all nice, detailed and expressive, especially for Utsuwa and Kusunoki, because as far as I'm aware they're the only ones who have more than one portrait, and the cutscene art is nice and beautiful as well. For instance, when I first saw Utsuwa make this face, I honestly thought it was really funny and adorable, so now I'm showing it to you so you can share my joy. The music is nice, cozy, and for the most part, pretty darn quiet. Don't expect sick rock riffs or grand, bombastic orchestral melodies, it's more atmospheric and emotional is the only way I can think of putting it. The main melody, for instance, is calm and relaxed, but it also feels slightly melancholic. It's all pretty good, and personally I feel they all emphasize and complement the situation well, even if there doesn't seem to be that many tracks in this game, as far as I could tell, though it's certainly possible I missed some, so who knows, maybe there's more than I think. Also, I really want to mention the beautiful song that plays during the credits. I mean, just listen to this. Brings a tear to my eye. The sound effects are all nice as well, but some of them kind of made me raise an eyebrow. Like, when you're fighting this thing, Utsuwa says that it's a failed version of her. So it's a robot, right? Then why does it make this weird fleshy sound when I punch it? Another example is when you first meet Kibo, you can ask her to give you some affection, and when you do, the screen turns black and you get this sound. Seriously, what was that? Someone unzipping their pants? You two are right in the middle of the street, you can't just do that stuff here. As for the gameplay, well, there isn't a whole lot to talk about actually. It's basically a point-and-click adventure life simulator. 95% of the game is basically just walking around, talking to people and interacting with stuff. It's not about fighting titans or going on grand expeditions. It's just a short life sim where you casually live out a regular afternoon. The remaining 5% of the game are mini-games that are a little more interactive. Fight this, help Dole here, serve some customers, blast robots with a gun, tower defense style, and of course the absolute best minigame of all, fishing! Still, they all basically amount to just pressing a few buttons or making a decision on occasion, nothing incredibly complex or demanding. The real interesting part of the game is the whole personality test gimmick. In the upper left corner of the screen, you can see this heart, and every little action you perform fills it ever so slightly. Once it's filled, the test ends, and this is when you start beating up sheep before being sent back to Mr. TV Head, who will prompt you to play the test again. Every decision you make, and other smaller factors like how long you take to make those decisions, affect your final test result and thus which personality you end up with. As such, the real joy of the game is simply running through the test and seeing what you get, potentially doing it more than once in order to have a fuller picture. And I think that's neat. There's something strangely interesting to me in seeing how other people act or think, so all this personality stuff just scratches an itch in my sometimes overly analytical brain, and seeing the results of these kinds of tests always makes me reflect and reconsider myself a little. But here, most of what it did was make me realize how differently I act in video games compared to real life. Like, why am I so ready and willing to work at a cafe in a game when the idea of doing so in real life makes me want to cry? Why would I pick up this shovel and dig up some random scrap when I can't even be bothered to go outside? And why, oh why, do I talk to almost everyone and accept to help them with whatever they need when in reality I can barely muster the courage to talk to my parents on occasion and get viscerally uncomfortable at the mere thought of interacting with my coworkers at my job because of how borderline antisocial I am? I'm reflecting, alright, but I don't think it's the way the game expected me to. Or maybe it is, honestly I don't know what to believe anymore. Like I said earlier, by doing the test more than once, you'll unlock more details about your personality. If you beat it twice, you can see your hidden personality, and you can see your most distant personality, basically your least representative one if you will, by clearing the test 3 times. Once you beat the game at least once, you can click this little disc here in order to see your personality whenever you're on the main menu, and as you beat the game some more, you'll unlock these additional tabs up here that'll provide you with more details as well as your gameplay stats. There are also these scales over here that'll let you compare your personality with that of other people. Finally, once you clear the test 3 times, you'll also unlock this little side mode, the Doctor's Human Comprehension Test. It's pretty simple. You're asked some questions to which you'll give your own answer, and then afterwards you'll choose which of the 2 options you think was the most popular. It's interesting, and the questions can be a little unhinged at times, but it was fun to go through, though I can't help but feel like some of the answers might have been somewhat biased here. Like, with a question that asks you whether you would prefer playing inside or outside, I get the feeling the results might have looked just a tiny weensy bit different if it hadn't been asked by a video game, you know? All in all, it's definitely an interesting experience. I honestly really enjoy when games use their interactivity to bring us truly unique experiences that offer fresh new spins on things. Something that would normally just be a bunch of questions like a personality test can become so much more personal and enjoyable when experienced through the lens of a video game. Unfortunately, however, I feel the differences in how we interact with the real world compared to fictional media might end up leading to some dissonant results for some of us. But like I mentioned earlier, I still think it can be a good avenue for self-reflection just as much as a more typical approach. However, because they're so personal, what one person will get out of it is going to be completely different from most others. And because of the subject matter, there's basically guaranteed to be something to gain, making this game recommendable to practically anyone. So, if you're ever in the mood to look inwards, pondering a difficult decision in life, or even just looking for a pleasant experience that'll give you something you can bring into the real world, Refined Self will be there for you, ready to lift you up. Hey, it's the outro, and as always, no one cares, so I'm just going to get it over with. So thanks for watching, make sure you like and subscribe or dislike and unsubscribe, and watch out for my next video in like 6 years maybe.